Okay, so I kind of completely forgot to actually do a video on the 2021 season awards before talking about the playoffs. So yesterday's video was about the Bucks versus Heat matchup, but real quick, I'm just going to get this video out of the way talking about who I think will win every NBA award. The unfortunate aspect of this is that the NBA has its very stupid NBA award show, which means that we're not actually going to find out who won these awards really until about halfway through the playoffs when the voting is revealed. And then by the time the actual award show happens, no one gives a single shit about who actually won. But in today's video, I'm just going to talk about who I think will win. So yeah, roll the intro. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then please subscribe. Also drop a like on this video, only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. There is going to be pretty much a nearly daily playoff coverage on this channel for the foreseeable future, really until the playoffs are done. So if that is something that interests you, then seriously subscribe to this channel because I'm going to be pumping out playoff content. Anyways, let's get into the awards. I didn't really put the award and their categories in specific order other than saving MVP for last, so this is probably going to come off as kind of random, but the first award I have right out of the gate is Most Improved Player. The three candidates for this one are Julius Randle, Christian Wood, and Jeremy Grant. There are a couple other names in there here or there, but for the most part, these are the three big names, and I've made it pretty clear by now that my pick for this award has to be Julius Randle, because while both Jeremy Grant and Christian Wood have drastically improved, Christian Wood has missed a lot of time, and Jeremy Grant's team is not very good. Meanwhile, the New York Knicks have been amazing, and Julius Randle is pretty much the biggest factor for that. So because of this, Julius Randle is my most improved player. On top of that, if we're just looking at pure improvement, as great as Jeremy Grant did improve this year, what's wild is that Julius Randle actually managed to improve more because his leap as a shooter and playmaker are pretty much unheard of in terms of how good players can get over one off season. Now for Defensive Player of the Year. The main candidates are Ben Simmons, Rudy Gobert, Bam Adebayo. There are, once again, guys on the outskirts. Draymond Green is a good pick for this, I believe. TJ McConnell is mentioned because he led the league in steals despite coming off of the bench. But my pick has to be Rudy Gobert. Now, when I posted a poll about this and asked people who they thought Defensive Player of the Year was, first of all, Rudy Gobert did win, but I saw multiple comments saying it is probably Rudy Gobert, but I don't want it to be him because I'm tired of him winning. And that is a problem with NBA fans and NBA media. Voter fatigue. He already has 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. This would be his 3rd. But if he deserves it, he deserves it. Who gives a shit which one it is? He has anchored one of the best defenses in the league and has for pretty much his entire career. And while yes, he's not as great on the perimeter and is often exposed in the playoffs by elite ball handlers who drag him out to the perimeter, for the most part, he is one of the most impactful defensive players in the league. The case for Ben Simmons is that he is maybe the best defender in the league, especially the best perimeter defender, because while he is 6'10" and can defend the paint, he is also amazing on the ball. And Bam Adebayo, honestly, to me, is probably my pick for best defender in the league, though I have it relatively close regardless. But the Miami Heat's defense has not been as great as the Jazz. The Heat have not been as successful as the Jazz, and that's just kind of how this award goes. Typically, if you look at the history of this award, it's a defensive-minded center on one of the better teams in the league, and that's exactly what Rudy Gobert is. For Sixth Man of the Year, the candidates are Derrick Rose, Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles, and Chris Boucher, who is a slept-on pick. Chris is fantastic for the Raptors off of the bench. He is a good three-point shooter, a very good shot blocker, and a passable rebounder. He is skinny, so he sometimes gets bodied in the post and things like that. But overall, he is a very good 3-and-D center off of the bench. And honestly, probably should be starting looking at their centers, even though they probably go with Khem Birch just because he's bigger. They did the same thing for Aaron Baines, but eventually he got cut out of the rotation. But that's a whole different conversation. He's just an underrated candidate, mostly because Toronto has been a massive disappointment this year, so who's paying attention to them? But really, this award is going to go to one of Jordan Clarkson, Derrick Rose, or Joe Ingles. What's interesting about this is we have two candidates who are on the same team in the Utah Jazz. Now, Jordan Clarkson scores 18 points per game off of the bench. However, Joe Ingles gets 13 points, 5 assists, and he does this on 67% true shooting 45% from 3 on multiple attempts per game. Honestly, if you watch Utah Jazz games, Joe Ingles might actually be more important to this team than Jordan Crawford. Not Jordan Crawford. Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Crawford is not Jordan Clarkson. Derrick Rose, however, is also very important to his team and his team's bench. He scores about 15 points per game, gets about 3-4 assists per game off of the bench, and he also shoots 41% from 3 this year on the Knicks. But one thing that could go against this case is that he's only played 35 games on the Knicks where he has been as impactful as he is. While he was still 6-man on the Pistons and still scoring points, he wasn't nearly as impactful. So while I want to lean towards Derrick Rose for this award because of how good he has been for the Knicks, you can argue the sample size just is not there in terms of his actual impact. So I'm actually going to go with Joe Ingles on this one. And I realize that Jordan Clarkson is probably going to win this award, but I think Joe Ingles is the most important player off of the Utah Jazz bench and really the most important 6-man in the league, period. And that is not really how the award has been given. It's pretty much the who scores the most points off of the bench in the league award. But in terms of actual impact, I think Joe Ingles is more important to the Jazz than Jordan Clarkson. For Coach of the Year, the candidates are Tom Thibodeau, Monty Williams, and Quinn Snyder. Tom coaches the Knicks, Monty coaches the Suns, and Quinn coaches the Jazz. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to give this award to Quinn Snyder, which is not a great idea because he looks like a mob boss and very well could be. But really, it's kind of neck and neck for me between Monty Williams and Tom Thibodeau. The Suns, obviously a huge success story this year, but also the Knicks are obviously a huge success story. And personally to me, when I look at the Suns when they had Monty Williams versus when they didn't, and the Knicks when they had Tom Thibodeau versus when they didn't, I see a much bigger difference in how the team actually behaves and how they actually play with Tom Thibodeau. Don't get me wrong, the Suns have made quite a bit of adjustments as well, but I also think the personnel change with Chris Paul has had just as big of an impact there as Monty Williams has. Meanwhile, I think Tom Thibodeau has made a massive, massive, massive impact on the culture of the Knicks, their defensive identity, all that kind of stuff. Though I would not be mad at you if you gave this to Monty Williams. I really have it right next to each other, but I'm going to go Tom Thibodeau here personally. And this is coming from somebody that was not a fan of Tom Thibodeau previous. Executive of the Year is an award that not a single fucking person talks about, but here are the candidates. James Jones of the Phoenix Suns, Sean Marks of the Brooklyn Nets, Daryl Morey of the Sixers. So all three of these guys have done amazing things. Sean Marks, of course, pulls off the James Harden trade. Daryl Morey re-workshopped the Sixers in a way that made them the first seed in the conference and allowed Joel Embiid to fully be himself at his best. But I'm going to give this one to Monty Williams because I think the Chris Paul trade has mattered quite a bit to the Suns. It's not just that, the signing of Jay Crowder, doing well in the draft, and really just building this team over the past few seasons. I don't remember what his exact tenure is, but I think he's done a pretty damn good job building this team, and I personally lean towards him mattering more for his team's success, even though Sean Marks probably, well, not probably, definitely made the most impactful and biggest trade of this bunch. I do believe I would give this one to James Jones because I think his trade has meant the most of that franchise individually. For Rookie of the Year, the candidates are LaMelo Ball, Tyrese Halliburton, and Anthony Edwards. Now, I made a whole video about this because I really don't have a strong choice for this one. And the reason for that is LaMelo Ball has missed quite a bit of time, but Anthony Edwards has been inconsistent this year. Great the second half of the season, not good the first half. Tyrese Halliburton has been consistent throughout the entire year, but he has not had the heights of either of these guys, but he has played more games than LaMelo, played less than Edwards, but not had a first half that was terrible, but also not had a first half that was great. So he kind of falls in the middle between him and Edwards in terms of just consistency. But then LaMelo has played less games, but LaMelo was definitely the best player when he played those games, and he was pretty consistently great the whole way through, but he played a lot of less games. So I don't have a strong pick here. My gut just says LaMelo Ball because I know LaMelo in those games would have continued to be amazing and ran away with Rookie of the Year. But that's kind of flawed logic because he still did not play those games, and that matters. I'm just going LaMelo because that's what my gut says. But it could be Edwards. I don't think it's going to be Tyrese. It's really between Edwards and LaMelo. But I'm gonna go with LaMelo. But Edwards, I don't know. I really don't know. In the video I made about who should win Rookie of the Year, I said I don't know about 50 fucking times, and I'm not gonna repeat myself here. But yeah, that's my pick, I guess. And then finally, we get to Most Valuable Player. The candidates here are Nikola Jokic, Chris Paul, Stephen Curry, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. The Chris Paul one has been mentioned a lot more lately, and while I did just contribute a lot of the success to the Suns, or attribute a lot of the success of the Suns to Chris Paul, at the same time, I do think that Chris has been given a little bit too much credit for the team's success. Not that he has not been a big factor, but to the point where people act like the Suns would have been a lottery team and a bad team without Chris Paul, and that's not true. Chris Paul joined a team that I think probably would have been like the 6th seed in the conference without him, and with him, they are the 2 seed. And that's a big difference, but to act like they were going to be terrible and instead they are a contender because of him, I think is an over-exaggeration. And when you look at it from the perspective of Chris Paul's numbers are not mind-blowing by any means, really, he should not win MVP under those circumstances. Steph Curry is probably the guy who's going to get second in voting, in my opinion, and the reason for that has to be that he's the most important player to his team. I made a video on this as well, most valuable player, but not actually MVP, because as we know, historically, those two terms do not co-align. Like the actual most valuable player and the MVP are very often not the same person. Giannis has no chance of winning this award whatsoever, but I feel that's worth mentioning for Giannis fans who get annoyed by the fact that, once again, he's putting up just as good numbers as he did before. The Bucks are pretty much just as successful, not the top seed now, but still very, very good. But Giannis is not going to win the award because he won it 2 years in a row previous, and they're not going to give him 3 in a row. So yeah, he's not going to win the award. Is that fair? Is it not? Probably not. It's probably voter fatigue, although I still think Jokic had a better year than Giannis, so there's a little bit of a gray area there for me. I just spoiled my pick there, but you know what I mean. But yeah, Giannis, he deserves more credit in this conversation, but he's not going to win the award. Also, I didn't mention James Harden amongst my candidates, just simply from the fact that a lot of games he's played, he's had a lot of help. In the games that he hasn't played, he missed a good amount of time. Same reason why LeBron James is not in my pick, even though he missed a little bit less time than LeBron James. And really, if James Harden did play those games, he would have played a lot of them with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and I think that would have taken away from his MVP case, as I made the point in my last MVP video. So that's why he's not really here, nor is LeBron James. Joel Embiid has also missed a ton of games. I think he has been a little bit more important to his team. Well, not than LeBron or James Harden, but like, you know, I don't know what I'm saying here. But he was leading the MVP race before he got injured, so I feel it's important to mention him, but he's not going to win it because of the time he missed either. And then finally, this leads us to Nikola Jokic, who is my pick for MVP, as I've kind of made that known as well. Jokic is incredible. Statistically, he's incredible. He's led his Suns to... His Suns? No. He's led his Nuggets to a good record. Could be better. Historically, MVP almost always goes to a top 2 seed, and the Nuggets are not that. But considering the fact that they struggled as much as they did at the start of the year, as soon as they got past that struggle, they have played like a top 2 seed in the conference. And also, they had the same winning percentage without Jamal Murray as with him, because Nikola Jokic, and as well as Michael Porter Jr., stepped up and took the I don't know why I keep wanting to call them the Suns. The Nuggets even further. I guess because I've put a lot of awards towards the Suns this video, I keep trying to say the Suns. But Jokic is putting up ridiculous numbers. His team has been very good. And really, he's almost a little bit winning by default, which I think some people have had issue with. I just mentioned there are 3 players here whose candidacy has kind of been taken away just by having injury. But at the end of the day, them's the breaks. Nothing you can do about it. What happens, what happened. In that case, Nikola Jokic wins MVP for me. And I kind of am pretty certain he's going to win the award itself. So on top of me thinking he is the MVP, I'm also pretty certain he's going to win the MVP. So yeah, that's it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video. Again, subscribe to this channel for playoff content. But yeah, that's it, and goodbye.